You know? Do you think that it's weird that I have the take that the insurrection would be justified if the claims were true? No, I think that the insurrection would be totally justified if the claims were true. It's just that the claims were not true, obviously, and the insurrection was also ridiculously sloppy. Like, there was no discernible goal, no real movement, no real momentum. What is this? There's a funny. It was just like the most perfect American politics moment, dude. It was like they had a Disneyland version of the
What happened to you?
I got maced.
You got maced?
By the police.
And what happened? You were trying to go inside the Capitol?
I made it like a foot inside and they pushed me out and they maced me.
What's your name? Where are you from?
My name is Elizabeth. I'm from Knoxville, Tennessee.
And why did you want to go in?
We're storming the Capitol. It's a revolution.
Yeah. What a classic. I mean, that's definitely the attitude that a lot of these fucking idiots had. You know what I mean? Imagine if the Occupy movement only showed up for one day and one day only, low energy conservatives. Yeah. There was a grassroots mobilization component to this entire thing, but there was also a tremendous amount of astroturfing, which is precisely why you never see that same energy, same momentum whatsoever recreated in any of the Trump events now. Why? Because Turning Point USA isn't busing people from different parts of the country anymore. Why? Well, because, like I said, they are not personally sending in people. And when you don't do that, when you don't pay for people's travel, when you don't astroturf it, you're not going to be able to get that many people out in the streets. In the same way that, like, real activism, real grassroots activism in the form of, like, you know, protesting against police brutality during the George Floyd protests, like, that kind of stuff is real. It's always hilarious to me, however, when conservatives project again, like they always do, and say things like, oh, George Soros is paying for people to go out and protest. And it's like, that's not real. You're personally projecting, because that's how it works with conservative movements. There isn't enough mobilization in and of itself on an issue, because why would there be, right? Who is going to mobilize on I guess, like, there isn't enough passion on tax cuts or tort reform or deregulation so that, you know, DuPont Chemical can keep dumping toxic pollutants into your water supply. Those are the things that conservatives actually care about. Like, but you're not going to be able to mobilize on that issue. So you have to find other issues, like social issues, that you can try and mobilize around. But the problem is, conservative social issues bring out the sweatiest, worst losers, right? It brings out the worst freaks. Like, we got our own freaks too. We got our most passionate freaks out there on the left. And yeah, sure, those guys are a little crusty. But ultimately, real progressive momentum and progressive mobilization is done on actual tangible harm being done to an entire population, like police brutality. Police brutality brings out a lot of people. Why? Because there's very real people who are impacted by it, and it's a real issue that it's a real cause that you can mobilize on, right? That is precisely the reason why there is real grassroots mobilization happening on a lot of progressive issues, and there isn't necessarily a lot of grassroots happening on conservative issues, unless you're talking about like Planned Parenthood and the like. But even then, there's a tremendous amount of big money pushing the mobilization on that front too, on abortion, on issues such as that. There's a lot of moneyed interest. The top post of all time on the website that replaced the Donald subreddit is from January 5, and it says, "See you all in DC tomorrow, Patriots," with thousands of deleted comments under it. Really demonstrates the organizational capacity. Will you tell Trunon about Hoscord? Wait, why? What happened in Hoscord? No. Anyway. But yeah, that's why I love and I'm fascinated by January 6th, because it's so incredibly American. It's so perfectly American. It's such a perfect American fuck up in every sense of the word. Like, no real mobilization occurring on boundaries that are just so silly overall. Objective failure. What happens when you bring together the worst small business tyrants from all around the country? Have you read the Epstein documents? Yes. Don't forget the landlords? Yeah, I mean, of course. There were people on PJs and stuff. What is really funny about this is also that, like, the FBI never gave up on it. The FBI never gave up on, like, punishing the January 6th insurrectionists. Like, they still, to this day, have, I think, 80 people that are persons of interest that they have yet to prosecute. And they've still prosecuted, like, hundreds. 3 people today were finally prosecuted and arrested. It's awesome. And what ended up happening was originally everybody distanced themselves from it. And 3 days out, not 3 days, sorry. 3 years out from the issue, 3 years out from the madness, we have now officially turned around on it completely. If you look at polling, like, right as it happened, a lot of Republicans were like, this is unacceptable. Like, Mitch McConnell came out and was like, we need to put an end to this madness right now. And then the liberals were like, oh my God, a voice of wisdom. Like, you're so sick, Mitch McConnell. Let's forget that, like, you played a significant role in putting these crazies in positions of power because you just, wanted to do a crazy amount of, you wanted to do all the deregulation you wanted to get away with. I was talking to my dad on the phone, and he was so confused and skeptical about how Capitol Police just let people walk in. I wasn't like, it's going to blow your mind when I tell you about the broader political inclinations of law enforcement profession. Yeah. 100%. This is still the all-time greatest January 6th post. Imagine spending the better part of the last 5 years having your brain and ego melted by uninterrupted /poll exposure, flying to Washington in the middle of a pandemic to hear Trump whine about Oprah and Mike Pence at a rally, marching up to Congress on his orders to smash shit and then mill around aimlessly. You go home and hear that Biden won anyway. All of your favorite Twitter news sources named like Patriot Newsman of the West with avatars of Roman statues have posted your photo online and are labeling you a gay communist Antifa actor. Then the next day, the God Emperor you pasted into Warhammer memes puts out a video cucking himself and bending the knee. I'm sorry, those were heinous acts, but please let me tweet again, Jack. You can't leave D.C. because the airlines have dubbed you a flight risk. You can't stay because the cops are actively looking for you after one of their own died. Your roommate at the only hotel that would accept you is a guy named Base Kekistani 1488 who wants to show you his Goblin Slayer torrents. The sun is going down and you're getting cold. Yeah. It's awesome. It's awesome. I mean, it is. It's totally awesome. And it was wonderful. And yet, the hilarious part about this is that Trump very clearly demonstrated that he did not care about these people whatsoever and, like, has only now, once years have gone by, basically, he's only now going back on it and being like, well, they're political prisoners and we must free them. So it's such a classic political opportunist moment. Like, he is just a pawn thing. Also, here's another great one. Seattle PD fires husband-wife duo who were at the Capitol on January 6th. This was another great one. January 6th, rioter nabbed in Bumble dating app. Sting pleads guilty to assaulting officers. There's Hasanabi heads who outed their dad and got their dad into criminal trouble. That's like, this is a real thing. That's a real, yeah. Hasanabi heads that snitched on their own parents. That was pretty funny. Andrew Taake was turned in by a Bumble user who used a dating app to elicit confessions from Donald Trump supporters who took part in a Capitol attack. Anyway. He gave like $10,000 raised not from his own money to legal aid. Oh, that's the other thing. He only gave 10 grand to legal aid. $10,000 only. Dude, I have given so much more to like random GoFundMes, okay, than Donald Trump has given to his own political movement. It's so awesome. It's not even his own money, I don't think. 10 grand from like campaign funds, I think, maybe. Not even his own personal funds. You know the girls love hearing about your location on January 6, 2021. Yeah, I mean, I raised like $3 million, but I gave more to the BLM funds out of pocket. You know what I mean? Yeah.
A federal judge has sentenced